Greetings adventurers and welcome to the Loot Goblin Marketplace. Today's treasure is called My Character Was Killed While I Was Away, but wait, there's more. Let's jump right into the story and make sure to like and subscribe to the channel as I make new videos every Monday with a bonus video here and there, as well as daily shorts content. The post starts, this was a few years ago, pre-COVID days if you can believe it, so I'm a little foggy on some details. I'll be using silly names for anonymity's sake, and to help keep my spirits up, as this story is still a bit of a sore spot for me. Trigger warning for a brief mention of SA. Here's our cast. Noble, a little cold to start with, but seemed fine after a bit, the Dungeon Master. Tifi, generally kind, but can get a little emotional about her characters, plays a tiefling monk whose wife was kidnapped. Bongo, pretty chill, plays a warlock cursed with a magical disease. Rhombus, had his head in the clouds a little, but a good player, plays as a dragonborn wizard-like class. It's some sort of homebrew investigator. I think there was another one or two players, but they aren't central to the conflict, so it's not super important. Some background. I was also running a game for the group, including the DM Noble. This was all over Discord and Roll20 because I'm in a different time zone. I'm a forever DM, so I was pretty excited when I got a chance to play finally. I rolled up an assassin rogue who was brainwashed by a cult as a teenager and uses an assassin against his small village home. The cult had been wiped out, and he'd been wandering for a bit before he came back to his senses, on the other side of the town from his tiny village, with almost no memory of what happened while he was brainwashed. He's convinced that he probably killed several of the people in his village while he was being controlled by the cult and fully blames himself. Simply put, simple farm boy, brainwashed assassin, guilt-ridden wanderer who just wants to help. So here's the story. The first few sessions go mostly without issue, as we escort a princess NPC who was captured by a powerful fae back to her family. As we escort her, we learn that she's been gone for a while, that she's a little uncertain if she wants to return as she didn't care for politics, and would probably be married off to a rival kingdom to keep the peace. My character, being a farm boy, didn't understand the big picture and was more concerned with what the princess herself wanted, so they got along well. When time came to leave the princess with her family, the party had decided that helping her would be too much of a risk, and she wasn't sure she wanted to escape. She gave him a flower. I'm pretty sure there was a romance option there, but as my character was a farm boy who, 1, didn't feel like he deserved a happy relationship because of his guilt, 2, was lured into brainwashing cult by his first crush, and 3, was implied to have been SA'd by the demon fallen angel the cult was devoted to, he naturally, politely declined, which DM Noble didn't seem to like much, and the princess turned cold. DM Noble later mentioned that it was a big social faux pas to decline a gift in that part of the world, and seemed to expect me to know that. Thing is, this is a completely homebrew world, and though the other players had played a full campaign in it, I had only been playing for this game about 3 or 4 sessions by that point, and even if I knew that, there's no way my farm boy from the other side of the world would know that. Things seemed to calm down after that though. Even though I was disappointed to have lost roleplay opportunity, I was still excited for the rest of the game and what it would bring. I had a couple of cool moments where my character stealthily killed a couple of enemies from the outside of a moving train, and made friends with an imprisoned person who had a much more progressed version of Bongo's character's disease, which brought more RP opportunities, yay. Things seemed fine for a bit, and my character was even getting to know Tifi's character, who was starting to let down her walls. Her character was afraid of men. I can't remember why. Alas, it was not the last, and as we were traveling on a country road, we came across some nasty monsters towards the end of a session. Because a couple of us were going to be away, DM Noble said the next game would be an RP-only session, and would be different characters in a historical setting. Neat. Unfortunately, the night before the game, one of my friends was feeling pretty awful, and I stayed up a bit late comforting them, and didn't wake up in time for the game. I figured it wouldn't be an issue, seeing it wasn't a super important session and half of us were away anyways. But boy was I wrong. DM Noble last minute decided she wanted to work out some frustration with combat, and switched back to the main game with only 2 of 5 players. And when I woke up, different time zones remember, I was told my character had been killed. Great. Alright, I'm going to cut in here because the DM did maybe one of the only cardinal sins you can do as a dungeon master, which is take away agency from the player. There's a lot of bad things that a DM can do to a player, but all of them kind of stem back to this idea that you took away a decision from the player, be it a role-playing decision, a combat decision, maybe even like retconning their backstory. These are all decisions that take away agency. And the reason it's frustrating is the DM gets to control everything else in the world. It really sucks when they use their power to control the one thing you do control yourself, which is the player character. And especially when it's out of session, it makes it so much worse. Let's jump back into the story and see how the player handles this. I'm pretty averse to conflict and didn't want to lose the only game I was playing in, so I tried to look past it, hoping the DM would have had a plan to bring me back, maybe even adding to the story. I was almost right. The DM brought back all the characters into a weird pocket dimension with the world's trickster god there. To clarify, my character's backstory had no connection to the trickster god, only to the demon/fallen angel the cult was devoted to. The trickster god asked if my character thought he deserved to live. Now, a couple things go through my head. One, my character still hasn't overcome his guilt. It's been like 6 sessions top, and there hadn't been any story around my character yet. And 2, this was a trickster god. Who knows what he'd do if I say yes? What'd he do if I say no? Or if what I said would even matter? My character, reminder, a farm boy who hasn't seen such magic, let alone a god, answers with a nervous, non-committal, I don't know? Apparently that was not good enough. And the trickster god sent us back, and while I'm brought back to life, I only have a few hours to live. Shit. Well, maybe we can still savage it? We rush to the nearest people who we think can help, some witches, but they say they can't do anything. And my character dies again, with no chance to do anything. Then the trickster god comes back and tells me that, in no uncertain terms, my whole backstory is a lie, and that it was all implanted in my brain by him. There was no cult, there was no assassinating, and no satisfactory resolution. Just, ooh, it was all a dream. Naturally, I wasn't super happy about this. Shortly after the session, the DM left chat, and because I can be a bit shy, and DM Noble could be pretty staunch, I asked the other players, who knew her better than I did, how best to approach the situation. They didn't really have any advice, so I just decided to sleep on it and talk to Noble in the morning. Overnight, news of my dissatisfaction made its way to Noble, and I woke up to a message from her accusing me of gaslighting her friends, banning me from the chat, and blocking me before I could respond. That did not feel great, as not only had I lost the only game I was playing in, all the players were also playing in my game, which I had to put a lot of effort into making for them, and they were like 90% of my friends at the time. They were unwilling to let me back in the group, but I still wanted to know what I did wrong, so I could at least be better in the future. Tiffy was the only one from the group who hadn't blocked me, so I apologized, asked what exactly I had done as Noble was pretty vague, but Tiffy was just as vague, and then blocked me shortly after. I'm autistic, so I'm not the most socially adept, but I really don't see what I did wrong, if anything. It hardly matters now, especially after how long it's been, but I suppose it's worth chucking in an "Am I the asshole?" at the end here. Hope you guys at least get some entertainment out of this nonsense. TLDR, my character was killed while I was away, the DM completely invalidated my backstory, and then accused me of gaslighting and kicked me when I tried to talk to them about it. Let's start off with answering your question. I don't think you're the asshole here. I think there was a few things you could have done here to salvage the situation, and I'll break them down, but I want to stress that it probably wasn't worth salvaging. I know you said they were 90% of your friends at the time, but you also said that they were a Discord group, and this group came off Roll20. This is the downside of Roll20 and Discord. A lot of the time you're joining pre-established groups, or maybe even a couple different groups where you have a party of 6 and 2 people come from one place, 3 from another, and then there's kind of the odd one out. And what ends up happening is sometimes they mesh, but sometimes those cliques do stay. So if you piss off one of the 3 or one of the pair, you lose them all. And that's just kind of the unfortunate reality of playing online tabletop games. What I want you to remember is that you didn't know these people maybe 2 years ago. You probably weren't going to know them 2 years from now. Would it be nice to find a forever group? Yes. But this doesn't sound like that group. So breaking down the stuff you could have done better. I've been guilty of oversleeping into games here and there, but usually what I try to do is at least say, hey, I've had a really long night. I'm going to take a nap. I set a couple of alarms for our game start time. Maybe even give them their phone number or keep Discord on really loud so they can spam wake you. Just let them know what you're planning to do, so if you do oversleep, they're not surprised. They might be irritated. They're still going to be irritated when you miss the session, but they're going to be a little less irritated because they're not making up in their head the reasons why you missed it. And when it comes to you feeling socially inept, they didn't really explain what you did wrong. The only thing that you can take away from this is maybe don't talk about the DM or talk about another party member behind their back before you actually talk to them first, because the way they're going to hear it secondhand from someone else, it's going to come off a lot harsher than you mean it to be. So because you want to avoid conflict and then you ended up venting to someone, it did maybe agitate the situation a little bit. Because if you're already on this DM's bad side, they're not going to take your questioning in good faith from the secondhand account of another player, so just keep that in mind. Overall, it seems like you're in a better spot now. The fact that you wanted to improve, you wanted to know what you did wrong, is a sign that you will be a better and better teammate, a better and better DM as time goes on. Sadly, something went wrong here, and it could have been the party and not you. But the fact that you're going to learn all the lessons you can is a great sign for the future. Thank you for sharing your story, and I just want to reiterate to any DMs out there, do not retcon people's backstories. It means so much to them. It was a really good concept that they never got to play out, and the DM, kind of in a spiteful way, used their power to retcon the backstory. And like I said earlier, there's very few things players have agency over. If you retcon their backstory, you've essentially ruined their entire character creation. Do not do that. If you have any problems with their backstory going into it, make it very clear, try to make compromises. And overall, once session 1 starts, anything that you two have hashed out and finalized in the backstory should be set in stone. You can add to it, you can give them plot hooks based off it, just never have a moment where this divine deity comes in and completely wipes away the entirety of their agency, the entirety of their backstory. Quick shout out before I end the video, I actually turned on memberships for this channel, and I actually have our very first person to sign up, Bloodsmith Gamer, and I hope many more will join soon. I'm going to try to do special polls as well as kind of Q&A sessions based off people joining, as well as down the road, I hope to do some homebrew. What I'm thinking basically is doing mock-ups of either D&D villains I've done in the past, as well as just cool PC and NPC ideas that you can include in your campaign. Down the road too, I plan on making D&D classes. First, some inspired by older editions of the games that haven't quite had a newer version of those classes imported into either like D&D 5th edition or Pathfinder. So please keep an eye on that, and I'll make sure to make more shoutouts at the end of these videos to say when I add more stuff to the membership. Thank you everyone for stopping by. It means a lot for you listening to me talk about these stories. Make sure to like and subscribe, and I really want to hear what you guys thought of this story. I hope to see you all in the next one. Farewell for now.